Never explain. Your friends don't need it, and your enemies won't believe it anyway. They pulled away. And now your mind? It's running wild. You're thinking maybe if you said something, maybe if you reached out, explained yourself, poured your heart out, maybe then they'd come back. But my friends, let me hit you with the truth. Words won't fix what silence was meant to expose. You're not here to chase. You're not here to beg. You're here to reclaim something far more valuable than their attention, your self-respect. So before we go deeper, hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and press the bell icon. Because this one, it's not just a video, it's a turning point. Stay with me. Hey folks, imagine this. A lion in the wild doesn't roar for attention. It doesn't announce its presence. It just walks, moves, silently. And yet every creature in the jungle feels that presence. That's what silence should be for you. Not an empty void, but a roar so powerful it doesn't need sound. See, we've been fed a lie, especially when it comes to relationships. We're told that if someone pulls away, it means we need to do something. Reach out, fix it, prove we care. But let me break that lie once and for all. What pulls people back in isn't more of your energy. It's the sudden loss of it. Silence, when used right, doesn't push people further. It pulls them deeper into their own minds. It stirs doubt, curiosity, regret. It speaks in a language their ego can't argue with. When someone expects you to chase, and you don't, that's when they start asking themselves questions they weren't ready to answer. Why aren't they reaching out? Have they moved on? Did I matter less than I thought? That silence becomes a mirror. And my friends, sometimes people need to lose access to your presence to finally realize its worth. But let's be real. I know some of you are thinking, won't they forget me if I stay silent? Number. They forget the ones who beg, the ones who flood their phone with messages, who become background noise. But they never forget the one who vanished into purpose. They never forget the one who walked away with grace and didn't look back. That's how you become unforgettable. Not by shouting, but by going quiet and growing louder in your own life. Think about a fire. You don't get it to burn brighter by smothering it. You step back, give it air, let it breathe. Same goes for connection. The more you chase, the more it fades. The more you give it space, the more it has room to grow. That's what we're doing in this video, not teaching you how to play games, but how to shift energy. How to let silence speak so loud that they can't ignore it. You're not trying to win someone back by force. You're becoming someone so powerful, so at peace, so rooted, that they feel your absence more than they ever appreciated your presence. And yes, we'll laugh a little too, because healing doesn't have to be stiff and serious all the time. Sometimes silence is just you sipping coffee, reading a book, hitting the gym, and watching them try to figure out where they lost you. That's the fun part, the quiet revenge, the transformation that doesn't need to announce itself because it shows in how you walk, how you move, how little you now need what you once chased. So stay with me, my friends, because what I'm about to show you isn't theory. It's strategy, it's stoicism, it's psychological fire. And when you learn to use silence the right way, you don't just re-attract someone, you become the person they can't stop thinking about. Drop this in the comments right now. Silence is my power. Say it, type it, believe it, and remember, don't just watch, become. Number 1, don't react, recenter. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. The moment they pull away, your heart starts pounding. Your brain kicks into overdrive. Should I message them? Should I explain myself? Should I fix this before it slips through my fingers? And that, right there, is where most people lose the game. Because instead of choosing power, they choose panic. Instead of responding with strength, they react with fear. My friends, the urge to react is the test. And silence, that uncomfortable, heavy silence, is the doorway to everything you've been looking for. Picture this. A warrior standing in the middle of a battlefield, sword in hand, chaos swirling all around him, arrows flying, dust clouding his vision. But he doesn't move, not out of fear, but out of mastery. Because he knows the moment he swings blindly, he risks everything. That's you right now. The silence feels like chaos. The distance feels like war. But your stillness, your refusal to lash out emotionally, that's the warrior's stance. Calm in the storm, centered in the noise. Now, I get it. There's a part of your mind screaming right now. What if they forget me? What if they move on? What if I lose them for good if I don't say something? But those questions aren't coming from your strength. They're coming from your wounds. That's your fear talking. And fear is a liar dressed in urgency. Because the truth is, if someone pulls away and you chase them, you don't pull them closer. You push them further. You don't remind them of your value. You make them question if you have any. It's hard. Of course it is. We're wired to seek connection. We're taught to fix, to solve, to smooth things over with conversation. But this isn't about social conditioning. This is about psychological evolution. It's about rising above the default settings of desperation and choosing discipline. Choosing presence. Choosing silence, not as a way to ignore, but as a way to recenter. Because when someone pulls away, that silence they leave behind, that's your space to grow. That's your time to sit with yourself, to remember who the hell you were before you started making someone else the center of your emotional universe. You weren't born to orbit around someone else's mood. You were born to be the sun, radiating energy, whether they choose to face you or not. And here's something they won't tell you in pop psychology videos. Silence doesn't mean doing nothing. It means doing the right things. Getting back to your habits, hitting the gym, dialing in your purpose, building the version of you that doesn't flinch when someone exits your life. That version of you isn't waiting for a text. He's building his empire. She's sharpening her mind. They're becoming someone who doesn't need to be reattached to be valuable. They are the value. You may think you're being strong by reaching out. You're not. You're being strong by standing still. You're not ignoring them. You're honoring yourself. You're not playing games. You're reclaiming your power. Because silence, used with intention, that's not emptiness. That's alignment. So what's coming next? That's the beautiful part. Once you recenter, once you truly sit in your own presence without breaking, they will feel it. Not through a message, not through a call, but through the shift in your energy. The quiet pull of someone who is no longer desperate, no longer broken, no longer begging. That's when curiosity starts to stir. That's when regret starts to whisper. And that, my friends, is when the game changes. So if you feel the urge to react today, don't. Breathe, recenter, and remember, every moment you don't break, you're building. Every second you stay still, you grow stronger. You're not here to chase, you're here to become. Drop this in the comments below right now. I choose power. Say it, type it, show the world, show yourself, because the strongest thing you can do when someone pulls away is to hold the line and rise anyway. Stay with me. What's coming next? That's when things get even more magnetic. Number 2, the shift in energy is felt, not explained. When you are no longer disturbed by what others say or do, you have mastered yourself. Marcus Aurelius. They don't feel your words, they feel your energy. And when someone pulls away from you, it's not what you say that brings them back. It's what they sense when you say absolutely nothing at all. Folks, we've been trained wrong. We've been trained to talk things out, to explain, to pour our heart into texts, thinking if we just say the right thing, they'll come back. But the truth? Explaining doesn't create attraction. Stillness does. Imagine this. You're walking through a forest and suddenly everything goes quiet. No birds, no wind, just stillness. You feel it, right? That tension, that awareness. You don't know what's changed, but you feel something changed. That's what your silence does. That's the shift. You don't need to announce your absence. Your lack of energy speaks louder than your presence ever did. When you pull your energy back, when you stop texting, stop checking, stop explaining, they notice, even if they don't admit it, even if they act cool, because humans don't respond to noise, they respond to the void. And when they feel that shift from you chasing to you choosing yourself, it hits different. It forces them to feel the absence of what they once took for granted. Now you might ask, but shouldn't I make my intentions clear? My friend, clarity doesn't come from over-explaining. It comes from how you carry yourself when someone walks away. Anyone can say they're confident. Anyone can say they have value, but only the rare few show it by pulling back with grace, by letting go without panic, by becoming a calm, unbothered presence that no longer needs validation to breathe. That's the energy they feel when you stop chasing, when you go silent not to punish, but to preserve your peace. It's like walking out of a loud room into fresh air. At first, they don't notice, but then they realize something's missing, something's shifted. And here's where it gets interesting. They start to question things, not because you said something clever, but because your silence gave them space to hear their own thoughts. And trust me, when they sit with those thoughts long enough, they will start replaying your moments together. They'll remember how it felt to have you there, your consistency, your warmth, your attention. Because suddenly there's a gap where you used to be. And gaps make people wonder. Gaps make people reach. But here's the truth. This shift isn't just about making them miss you. It's about making you remember you. Because when you stop giving all your energy away, trying to be understood, you finally understand yourself. And that's where the power begins. That's when your posture changes. That's when your energy becomes untouchable. Think of a candle in a room full of wind. The more you try to fight the breeze, the faster you burn out. But if you shield that flame, protect it, let the wind die down on its own, that flame lasts. Your energy is the same. Don't let their confusion blow out your fire. Let your silence shield it. Let your stillness give it strength. Now I know it's not easy. You'll feel that itch to check your phone, to explain yourself, to just see if they noticed your silence. But that's the trap. That's when people undo all the progress. Remember, they're not waiting for your words. They're watching for the shift. They're feeling for your energy. And the moment they realize you're no longer waiting for them, that's when their ego starts to slip. That's when their curiosity turns into concern. That's when power shifts. So hold the line, my friends. Let your growth speak louder than your voice. Let your discipline say what your texts never could. This isn't about making them miss you. It's about making yourself impossible to forget. Not with words, not with effort, but with energy. Because energy never lies. Drop this in the comments right now. My energy speaks volumes. Say it, type it, let it echo. Show yourself, show the world. Because the shift isn't about what they hear from you. It's about what they feel when they stop hearing from you. Stay with me, because next we step into the mystery, and that's when the pull gets stronger. Number 3. Mystery creates curiosity, not over-communication. To be desired, one must first become a mystery. Let's get something straight, folks. If you're constantly explaining, constantly posting, constantly trying to show them what they're missing, you're not creating attraction, you're killing the mystery. And what pulls people in deeper than anything? Curiosity, not clarity, not over-communication, but that silent, powerful question lingering in their mind. What are they thinking? Why did they stop? Why do I suddenly miss them? See, you don't draw people back by making yourself available at every turn. You draw them back by becoming unpredictable, unreachable, unfinished in their story. Think about it. When's the last time you were hooked by something you already understood completely? Mystery is magnetic. It's why cliffhangers exist. It's why unread messages get more attention than paragraphs of poured-out emotion. It's why silence gets replayed more times in the mind than long-winded explanations ever do. Now imagine this. A book you're halfway through suddenly disappears, not finished, not explained, just gone. Do you forget about it? Number. You think about it more. You replay the story. You wonder how it would have ended. That's what you become when you stop over-explaining. You become a story they can't stop rereading in their mind. Every time you resist the urge to reach out, to post something subtle to prove your point, you add another page to the mystery. And with every page, the desire to know how it ends grows. But here's what most people do. They talk too much. They overshare, they vent, they check in just to see how you're doing. They post that song lyric that's clearly aimed at one person. You know what that does? It kills intrigue. It confirms everything. It gives closure where silence would have created tension. Attraction doesn't thrive on certainty. It thrives on wonder. Let me break a lie for you. You've been told that if someone is slipping away, you need to talk more, do more, be more visible. That the louder you are, the more they'll notice. Wrong. The louder you are, the easier it is to ignore you. Real attention comes when your presence fades, but your energy lingers. When they start asking questions that only you used to answer. But now, all they get is silence. But what if they forget me? You won't be forgotten. You'll be felt. Because they don't miss the person who begged. They miss the person who disappeared with dignity, who chose peace over panic, who didn't need to be loud to be noticed. And when the mind doesn't know, when it can't explain, that's when it obsesses. Let's be honest here, folks. When someone pulls away, they expect you to chase. That's the script they've seen before. That's what most people do. But when you don't, when you vanish into your life, into your goals, your gym, your silence, that's when they start to feel it, and feel it deeply, Not just because you're gone, but because they can't figure out why you're so okay being gone. That's the mystery. That's the storm your silence starts brewing in their mind. Think about a magician. What makes the trick work? It's not what you see, it's what you don't. That sleight of hand, that space of confusion, that how did they do that? And you, my friend, when you stop chasing and start becoming, you become the trick they can't explain. The version of you they never fully figured out. And what the mind can't figure out, it fixates on. So don't fill every space. Don't overtalk. Don't post with the hope they'll read between the lines. Let them feel the void. Let the silence drive their questions. Because when you stop offering explanations, they start building their own. And that's when the curiosity sets in. That's when they go searching for answers, and all roads lead back to you. Drop this in the comments right now. I am the mystery. Say it, type it, believe it. You don't need to explain yourself into their heart. You just need to leave enough unsaid for their mind to never forget you. Stay with me, because up next, we talk about the truth behind silence and how it's not about games or pretending. It's about respect, the kind that begins with you. Number 4, silence doesn't say, I don't care. It says, I respect myself. The more you value yourself, the less you'll tolerate disrespect, even in the form of silence-breaking words wrapped in false urgency. Let's clear something up right now. Because this lie, it's the one that breaks most people in the silence. The one that whispers, if I don't reach out, they'll think I don't care. But listen, my friends, silence isn't indifference. It's self-respect in its rawest, most unshakable form. It's the difference between reacting from fear and standing tall in your own worth. See, when someone pulls away and you go quiet, the world, especially your anxious mind, starts spinning stories. You begin questioning yourself. Shouldn't I say something? Will they think I've moved on too fast? What if they feel hurt by my silence? But here's what you need to understand. Silence isn't the absence of care. It's the presence of dignity. It's not about pretending not to feel. It's about choosing not to bleed in front of someone who's already walking away. Let me give you a metaphor. Imagine a castle on a hill, strong, ancient, unmoved. Do you think the guards come running down every time someone shouts from the bottom? Number. The silence of the castle doesn't say, we don't care. It says, we don't chase noise. That's what your silence is, a wall of self-respect, a boundary, a declaration, not of coldness, but of calm. Now, I know what some of you are thinking, but they won't understand my silence. They'll think I'm over it. They'll think I've let go. Let me ask you something. Since when did your self-respect need to be translated for someone else's comfort? Silence is not your enemy. Your fear of being misunderstood is. You've been trained to over-explain, to overcompensate, to soften your strength so someone else can feel safe, while you're left unraveling. But this time, you're doing it different. This time, you're not breaking your own boundaries just to be seen. You're not handing over your emotional control like it's free candy. This time, you're letting your silence be the message. I care. But I care about me too. And that shift, that's when things change. Because when you don't flinch, when you don't rush in to clarify, when you don't crumble at the first sign of distance, they feel that. They feel the contrast. They feel the stillness. And most importantly, they feel the gap. And the gap is what wakes them up. Think of it like this. When a song ends suddenly, the silence that follows isn't emptiness. It's a moment that makes you realize how much you were vibing with it. When someone you're used to hearing from every day suddenly goes quiet, it doesn't feel like peace. It feels like weight, like space filled with questions. And those questions, they hit harder than any message you could have sent. Now, here's the trick. The silence only works if it's real. If you're quiet on the outside, but panicking on the inside, checking your phone every 5 minutes, stalking their stories, crafting unsent messages in your notes app, you're not silent, you're suppressing. That's not power, that's pretense. You have to actually get still, get centered, let go of what you want them to think, and live what you need to feel. You might not feel strong right away. That's okay. Strength doesn't show up in noise. It grows in quiet places. You'll want to break. You'll want to reach. But every time you don't, you rise. Every time you stay still, you get stronger. And eventually, you don't just look strong, you are. So don't fall for the lie. Don't break your silence just to remind someone you still care. If they can't feel it in your energy, they're not meant to hold it. Let them question. Let them wonder. Let your silence plant seeds their ego won't admit, but their soul can't ignore. Drop this in the comments right now. My silence is self-respect. Say it, type it, let it anchor you, because when you learn to stand firm in that silence, not to punish, but to protect, you become something they don't forget. You become the one who didn't need to shout to be felt. And trust me, they will feel it. Stay with me, because in the next section, we dive into something deeper. How absence becomes your greatest amplifier, and why saying nothing does more than any word ever could. Number 5. Let absence do what words never could. The right people will feel your absence louder than your presence ever had to speak. Let's get one thing straight, my friends. Absence is not the absence of power. In fact, it's the loudest power move you've got when someone pulls away. You don't have to beg. You don't have to explain. You don't have to deliver one more heartfelt monologue, hoping they'll finally understand what you meant, what you felt, what you wanted. Because if they couldn't hear your presence, then let them listen to your absence. You ever hear a song so often that you start tuning it out? It plays in the background, on repeat, and slowly you stop noticing the lyrics. That's what over-communication does. You become background noise, easy to ignore, always there, always reachable, always explaining. But then, one day, the music stops, and suddenly, they notice, not because it got louder, but because it vanished. Silence has a way of amplifying things that words never can. Words defend, words justify, words try to convince. But absence forces reflection. Absence strips away all the distractions and makes a person sit alone with their own thoughts. No noise, no comfort, no you. And in that space, something shifts. See, when you go silent, they're left with the last version of you they experienced. Maybe it was warm, maybe it was strong, maybe it was the version of you they thought would always be there. But now, they're stuck with nothing, and that nothing becomes a mirror, not for you, but for them, for what they lost, for what they didn't appreciate, for what they thought they could walk away from without consequence. But what if they don't come back? Good. That means your absence did what your presence couldn't. It revealed the truth. And if they do come back, it won't be because you chased them. It won't be because you convinced them. It'll be because they felt what life was like without your energy, without your mind, without your support. And they realized they miss that version of you more than they ever admitted out loud. Here's the key. You're not using absence to manipulate. This isn't about playing games. This is about reclaiming space, reclaiming energy. You've spent so long trying to fill every gap, cover every silence, patch every emotional hole in the connection, but you were never supposed to be the one doing all the emotional labor. That wasn't strength. That was survival. Now you're done surviving. Now you're choosing stillness. Now you're saying, if my presence didn't open their eyes, maybe my absence will open their mind. And I get it. It's hard. It feels like giving up. It feels like you're letting them drift further away. But sometimes the most powerful move isn't to hold tighter. It's to let go and watch who swims back. It's like a tide. You pull back, not out of anger, not out of bitterness, but out of balance. Because what's meant for you doesn't need to be chased. And if someone needs your constant presence to stay interested, then they were never interested in you, only in your availability. You want to know what makes someone unforgettable? The void they leave behind. Not because they made noise, but because they made impact. They stood firm, they loved deeply, yes, but they knew when to walk in silence, when to remove their energy, when to stop performing for someone who couldn't recognize the gift in front of them. Your absence is not a punishment, it's a message. It says, this is what it feels like when I'm no longer accessible. It says, you had something rare, and now you don't. Let that message echo. Let it stir their thoughts. Let it linger longer than any text you could have sent. Drop this in the comments right now. My absence is powerful. Say it, type it, mean it. You're not fading, you're focusing, you're not losing, you're leveling up. And if they come back, let them meet a version of you who doesn't beg, who doesn't explain, who doesn't need to be heard to be understood. Because by then, they'll already know. Stay with me, because up next, we're diving into how your stillness isn't weakness. It's the storm before the shift. And that stillness, that's when they start to spiral. Number 6. Stillness is louder than desperation. The quieter you become, the more you can hear. Let's talk about the difference between stillness and desperation. Because in the heat of emotional panic, most people confuse the two. When someone pulls away, they mistake silence for giving up and stillness for weakness. But my friends, stillness is not the absence of feeling, it's the presence of power. And if you don't learn to master that stillness, desperation will speak for you. And trust me, it always says the wrong thing. Picture this. You're in a storm, rain pounding, wind howling, and in the center of it all is one man, calm, unmoved. Everyone else is scrambling, yelling, trying to fix something that isn't theirs to fix. But not him. He's still. Not because he's afraid, but because he understands. You don't fight a storm by shouting at the sky. You survive it by standing grounded. That's what you become when you stop reacting, when you sit with the silence instead of trying to fill it. The stillness isn't surrender. It's self-control in its most potent form. But here's where most folks break. They think silence is passive, that if you're not doing something, saying something, proving something, you're losing. That fear creeps in. What if they think I don't care? So they send a message, just one, then another. Then they start posting those emotional quotes on their story, trying to be subtle, trying to be noticed. But what's really happening? They're broadcasting desperation under the disguise of expression. And nothing repels attraction faster than neediness masked as love. Let's break a truth that stings. The more desperate your energy becomes, the smaller your value appears. Not because you aren't valuable, but because you're showing them that your worth depends on their attention. That without their presence, you lose your peace. And nobody wants to carry the weight of being someone else's emotional oxygen. It's not flattering, it's pressure. And pressure kills desire faster than distance ever could. You need to understand something deep here. People are drawn to calm energy, to stability, to the person who doesn't flinch when someone walks away. And when you stand still in the silence, truly still, not fake calm, while secretly stalking their profile, you shift the entire dynamic. You stop being the one chasing, and you start becoming the one they wonder about. That stillness becomes presence, a quiet confidence that whispers, "I'm good with or without you." And that's what makes someone lean in. Think of a flame, not the frantic one that sparks and fades, but the steady one, the one that burns with quiet heat. It doesn't scream for attention. It doesn't need to dance wildly. It just stays lit. That's what you become when you embrace stillness, a steady flame in a world of flickering chaos. And that energy? That's unforgettable. That's what haunts them when they lie in bed at night and wonder why you didn't chase like everyone else did. Stillness isn't ignoring them. It's honoring you. It's knowing that if they couldn't recognize your worth when you were present, your silence will be the mirror that reflects everything they failed to appreciate. And if they do come back, they're not coming back to the same version of you. They're coming back to the one who learned how to be whole in the absence, the one who mastered stillness not to get them back, but to get themselves back. Now some of you are thinking, but I feel like doing something, saying something. And I get that. Your heart's loud, your thoughts are louder. But let me ask you, what has panic ever attracted? What has begging ever built? If they couldn't feel you when you were giving everything, why would they suddenly hear you when you're shouting from a place of lack? Breathe. Pause. Be still. Because in that stillness is your reset button. It's the place where emotional clarity starts to bloom. It's the space where your nervous system calms, your perspective sharpens, and your value starts rising, not in their eyes, but in your own. That's the kind of power that doesn't need to perform. It just is. Drop this in the comments right now. I choose stillness over desperation. Say it, type it. Let it remind you who you are. Because when you choose stillness, you choose yourself. You choose peace over panic, power over performance, self-respect over reaction. And stay with me, because up next, we talk about how becoming unforgettable has nothing to do with being remembered, and everything to do with who you become when you stop trying to be noticed. Number 7. You become unforgettable. When you stop trying to be remembered. The moment you stop trying to be seen is the moment they start looking for you. Let's kill the lie that's been stealing your power, that in order to be unforgettable, you have to keep reminding people of who you are. You have to post more, talk more, reach out more, show them what they're missing. Wrong. Completely wrong. My friends, the truth is far more powerful and far more liberating. You don't become unforgettable by being loud. You become unforgettable by disappearing into your growth. See, there's a reason the most iconic figures in history weren't chasing anyone's attention. They were too busy building, too busy evolving, too focused on their mission. And that focus That energy, it pulls people in. Because it's rare, it's attractive, it's magnetic. It's the kind of presence that doesn't need to wave its hands to be felt. It walks into a room without speaking and still turns heads. That's who you're becoming. Imagine this. You're at a crowded party. Everyone's talking, everyone's performing, trying to outshine each other. And then there's one person in the corner, calm, unbothered, not seeking the spotlight, just there, present, confident in their own space. Who gets your attention? Exactly. It's not the loud ones. It's the one who doesn't need to be noticed to be powerful. That's the shift we're talking about. Most people panic in the silence. They try to stay relevant. They want to be remembered, so they post more, chase harder, and try to be on someone's mind 24/7. But all that does is prove one thing. You're trying too hard. And when you try too hard, you're no longer seen as someone who's high value. You're seen as someone who's still emotionally dependent, still seeking validation, still stuck. But when you go silent, not out of bitterness, but out of purpose, something flips. You become the one who didn't chase, the one who didn't break, the one who disappeared, and yet their energy lingered. And that lingering feeling? That's what they can't shake. Now here's the truth. People don't remember noise. They remember impact. And you make impact when you pull back and evolve, when you start pouring all that energy into the gym, into your goals, into your peace, into becoming someone that even you didn't recognize a few months ago. You stop existing for someone else's attention, and you start existing in your own orbit. That kind of evolution doesn't need to be posted. It radiates. It speaks without speaking. Let's be real. If someone walked away from you thinking you'd always be there, and instead they come back and find someone who didn't beg, who didn't wait, who glowed up in silence, that hits different. Because now they're not just remembering who you were, they're confronted by who you've become. And that version of you. That version doesn't beg to be remembered. That version doesn't flinch when ignored. That version is etched in their mind without ever lifting a finger. You become unforgettable the moment you stop trying to remind them of you. Let them wonder. Let them scroll in silence. Let them ask mutual friends about you. Let them feel the shift. You don't need to explain it. You don't need to announce your transformation. Your energy will speak. Your progress will echo. Your detachment will haunt them louder than your attention ever did. And yes, there will be moments where the silence will tempt you, where you'll want to reach out, where you'll feel the urge to post something they'll accidentally see. But remember this, every time you resist the urge to be remembered, you deepen the impression of your absence. And the more rare you become, the more valuable you feel. Drop this in the comments right now. I don't chase memories. I create them. Say it. Type it. Let it remind you of your power. You're not here to beg for space in someone's mind. You're here to evolve so powerfully that your silence becomes a permanent mark on their soul. Stay with me, because in the next part, we're diving into the final test, the moment they come back, and how you meet that moment, not with desperation, but with power, with poise, with the unshakable strength of someone who didn't just survive the silence, you became it. Number 8. If they return, you're not who you were. You can't go back to who you were before the silence, because the silence turned you into someone stronger. Let's talk about the moment everyone secretly hopes for, the return, the text, the call, the random "how have you been" that shows up when you least expect it. It's the moment that can shake your core if you haven't done the work. But here's the truth, my friends. If they return, they're not coming back to the same version of you, and they better be ready for that. You didn't sit in silence just to kill time. You didn't go quiet just to wait. You didn't endure the ache of no contact, the late nights, the lonely days, just to be picked like an option again. Number, you used that silence to rebuild, to upgrade, to transform. And now, if they do come back, they're stepping into the presence of someone they never expected, someone who doesn't flinch anymore. Let me give you a metaphor. Imagine walking through a forest you once explored. You remember the paths, you remember the trees. But now, everything's grown. The roots are deeper, the silence heavier. What you thought was familiar is no longer the same. That's what it feels like when someone tries to re-enter your life after you've changed in the dark. You don't open the same way. You don't speak the same. You don't need what you once begged for. And that energy, that stillness, it shakes them. They come back expecting access, expecting the same rhythm, expecting the same you. But this time, you're no longer available like a product on a shelf. You're a standard. You're a fortress now, not a field. They'll feel that shift in your tone, in your pace, in your presence. Because now you're not looking for love. You are love. You've built it in yourself, and you no longer accept less than what honors that. And let's be honest, there will be a part of you tempted to fall back into the old pattern. The old roles, you'll feel it. That voice saying, finally, they see my worth. But here's the check. Do they see your worth, or do they miss your weakness? Do they want to rebuild, or are they just reacting to the silence they couldn't handle? You don't become powerful in silence only to shrink when someone finally notices your glow. This isn't revenge. It's not ego. It's alignment. If they return, they must meet the evolved version of you on your terms, not theirs. Because the person who stayed through the storm is not the same one who first felt the sting of their distance. So what do you do if they come back? You don't overreact. You don't make it dramatic. You let your calm do the talking. You meet their curiosity with clarity, their uncertainty with certainty, their return with boundaries, not desperation. You don't rush to fix, to explain, to rewind. You let them see plainly and powerfully that they're now dealing with a version of you who isn't afraid to walk away. And maybe you still care. Maybe the connection meant something. That's okay. You're not heartless. You're just not hopeless anymore. You don't hand your peace over like a coupon. You don't trade your growth for temporary validation. They can come back, but they'll have to step into the new chapter. Because the old one, that book's closed, and you're not rewriting it to make someone else comfortable. Let me be clear. You don't chase closure, and you don't apologize for your glow-up. They either match your energy, or they respectfully step aside. Because now, you know who you are without them. And that knowing, that's power no one can take. In conclusion, the real power isn't in chasing, it's in choosing silence, stillness, and self-respect. You re-attract not by noise, but by presence. If this message spoke to your soul, hit that like button, subscribe for more Stoic power, and share this with someone who needs to hear it.